Hey, 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 yeah, hey, what a time to be alive. I left them for dead, now I'm living right. No new friends, no new advice. That was high then, but we got bigger heights. We got bigger fish to fry. Bet on myself, then I roll the dice. Man, it ain't a gamble if you know you nice.
Welcome back to Dollar Dream Podcast. I'm your host, Ara Amen. This is the #1 podcast in Dallas, Texas. And today my special guest is Patrick Wilbanks, CEO and founder of Perpetual Wealth Coach.
That's right.
Based out of San Antonio, Texas.
Sure.
Man, appreciate you coming on today, my man.
Thank you. Honor's all mine.
Cool. So I want to kind of just start with your background, maybe 2 minutes real quick. Where you were born, what was family like? How did you grow up?
So I'm born and raised in Mississippi. Only time I saw another Korean was every time I looked in the mirror. There was only 3 races where I grew up: white, black, and Choctaw. And I grew up, matter of fact, Mississippi burning took place about 20 miles west. Time to Kill setting was about 20 miles east. Emmett Till was about 20, 30 miles north. So I grew up in one of the most historical parts of Mississippi called Lee County. Yeah.
What was family like?
Family. So my dad was a workaholic. He was a truck driver, OTR, which means over the road. Didn't get to see him too much because he was always driving. And my stepmom was
Bring this closer if you can.
She worked at the hospital as a chef. And so, really we raised ourselves. We was outside a lot, just kind of country life growing up in Mississippi. And then at 10 years old, I was already had my first job working chicken farms, picking up dead chickens and stuff like that. That's where my work ethic comes from. So I've been working since a very young age.
Okay, very cool. And what was Patrick Wilbanks like in high school? And you were still in Mississippi?
Yeah, for the most part. I moved to San Antonio basically senior year, but before that, I was a knucklehead.
Okay.
So I was in and out of trouble all the time. Couldn't stay in school. And then when I made it to San Antonio, I only went to A lunch, B lunch, and C lunch, and I was out. I couldn't do school. Troublemaker. I had a lot of issues going on inside and trying to find myself. And, eventually, like when I moved to San Antonio, because my mother was living here in San Antonio. And so I came to visit my brother. And I remember coming into Texas, and there was a sign that said, "Come on vacation, leave on probation." And 2 weeks later, I was already on probation, had to stay in Texas. And my mom was pissed off, and she made me homeless. And so the first couple of years being here in San Antonio, I was living under bridges, living in people's cars, all type of stuff. So it was a struggle. My first, 20 years of my life was just rough in a sense.
Why was it so rough? Where did that stem from, and what were you battling that put you in that position?
Man, a couple of things. I mean, at 5 years old, my mom, and I get it now that I'm older, but when I was younger, my dad cheated on my mother, and my mother left. And at the time, because I was a troublemaking kid, my mom took my brother and left me. And I guess that's where the first, motherly issue came from. And then from that, growing up in Mississippi, the racism that I dealt with, right? 6th grade, I was tied to a tree and beat in and out of consciousness because I was only half white. And they said, if you ain't all white, it ain't all right. And so that created a lot of hate. And then, and then nobody was there to help me. Like, again, when my own mom, when I moved to San Antonio, made me homeless in a city that I'm not used to the city. I'm from the country of Mississippi, and I've only been here 2 weeks, and you're already making me homeless. And so it was like, I felt abandoned, felt like nobody was on my side. And so those issues, they resonated for a long time. I was in and out of jail. And then when 20 years old is when I changed my life.
Could you unpack that? How did you change your life? What was that process like?
I was in jail, actually, and I was facing 120 years in prison. So I had multiple charges on me. And I just started studying different religions. And I started with the very first Zoroastrianism. And then I just went, chronologically in a sense as religions. The one that I skipped over was Christianity because the way I had viewed Christianity at that time was Ku Klux Klan. I didn't realize that even they are misinterpreting scriptures and stuff like that. And so, I studied all the religions, and then eventually I actually decided, I'm going to read the Bible. And I picked up the Bible, and I read multiple scriptures. I said, man, I want to be like Jacob. Touch my hip, cause me to never walk the same. I want to be like, Moses, no matter what how he messed up and hurt somebody, he still led God's people to where they needed to go. Man, I want to be like David. And then I saw Paul, and he was in jail, and he walked right out of jail. And I said, shoot, God, do that for me. And 1 week after I prayed that prayer, RCO1 Wilbanks, I was like, I don't have bail. And I was like, I don't know, it says RCO1 Wilbanks. You want to stay? You want to go? I said, no, I want to go. And I just got back from commissary, and I gave my commissary to my cellie, and I said, see y'all later. I ain't never coming back. And but that was the day when I got out. A month later, I went to see my judge, and I'm first doc of the day, and she starts crying. And I'm like, what the heck is going on? And she says, man, I hear this voice telling me I need to give you one more chance, but I don't want to do it because I have all the evidence I need to throw you away. And I said, now I'm like, what? What's going on? And she said, I feel like this voice is so real that I need to listen to it. And she gave me 6 years probation, and I haven't looked back since, man. And that's when I converted my life over. I said, I realized there's got to be a God of the universe, and I've got to go find this out.
That's a powerful story.
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
That's a powerful story. So you're in jail. You're going through the religions. Are you like looking for hope? Because you like, what's going on through your mind at that point where, why are you going to religion at this point?
I looked at religion as like structure.
Okay.
Yeah, I looked at it as a structure. I didn't really look at it as like pie in the sky or whatever they want to call it. Mm-hmm. I really just looked at it as structure. Like, what should I do? What should I not do? I know that my parents did try, but at the end of the day, I didn't feel like I had like them mentoring me, telling me what to avoid, what not to avoid, and things of that nature. And so I was looking for structure. Matter of fact, right when I graduated high school, every year on my birthday, I would go in and I would try to talk to all of the Army recruiters, Marine recruiters, and they would just be like, Pat, you have too much on your ledger book. We can't let you in. But every January 18th, which is my birthday, I'd go into all of them because they're usually like right back to back and so I went in there, and they would never take me. But what I was looking for was structure. I was asking people, man, like, I need structure to save my life.
You needed to build, in my opinion, it sounds like you needed to build that foundation because you never had that foundation.
Correct.
Okay. So as you're going through all the religions, you said you skipped over Christianity. What religions were you going through?
All of them. Again, Zoroastrianism, Buddhism, Islam, Judaism. I went through them all. And, and then what I really found was some commonalities in Judaism and Islam and Christianity. And then when I got out of jail and I could actually have more time to study and actually have more access to books and stuff like that. When I first got out, I was actually at UTSA spending all day at the library and just reading books on my own, getting self-educated. And that, I think, was also what changed my life, is really self-education, going out there and not waiting for some man to give me the information and not waiting for some man to teach me. Is really like, no, Pat, you can go and take life by control, but all you got to do is go get the knowledge. And there's plethoras of books, and you can expedite your learning curve by learning from other people, and that's exactly what I did.
What religion stuck out to you the most? Was there one that stuck out to you the most?
Well, so technically before I became a Christian, I was in Islam for a while. Yeah. I know that's kind of crazy to say because some people are like, oh, you left Islam? But it was because a lot of my mentors were already in that religion. And there's a whole backstory to how people get led there, especially when you're in jail, because that's like a big thing when you go to jail. A lot of people convert to Islam. And again, I think it goes back to people are looking for structure. Because they tell you it's black and white. This is right. This is wrong. This is, Judaism. This is kosher. This is non-kosher. This is halal. This is haram, right? And so, that helped me have some structure of like, this is wrong. This is right. And that's when I could gain a little bit more foundation for myself.
Cool. Give me the good, bad, and ugly of Islam.
Well, look, man, when you go and look at history, right, like Islam does, because when I look at the original scriptures, a lot of it is in Hebrew, right? So even if Islam says, we are Abraham, Isaac, Abraham, Ishmael, everybody. Well, Abraham and all them were they were speaking Hebrew.
Mm-hmm.
So when I studied Hebrew, that's when really I was like, hold on. The detail of Hebrew is crazy because it's in numbers, it's in symbols. And that's when I left Islam, because I was like, Judaism started really standing out to me, because I was looking at how it was actually the originator, right, with the original language. Now, Aramaic is technically a version, or Arabic is technically a version of Aramaic of Hebrew, and so on and so forth. And so, when you can go back and then even looking at that coming out of technically Zoroastrianism, or, coming out of what is modern day Turkey, most of those religions all started in that area.
Mm-hmm.
And so, but another thing for me is, like, when I was looking at how Muhammad, he was kicked out of Mecca. He was kicked out of his hometown. He wasn't accepted in his community. And then he went on a caravan, and he was traveling the King's highways and stuff. And there was actually a man that he ran into, and I'm trying to remember his name, but that man told him that you would be a prophet to your people. And so I get that. He would be a prophet to his people. And so he went back to the desert people and helped them gain sophistication, because at the time, think of like the desert people at that time being the country boys, and everybody else is cityfied already, right? And so nobody was educating these country boys, and he brought that structure to them. But then also, when I was looking at like Muhammad, he would tell you about Yeshua or Isa, right? And he was the Immaculate Conception and stuff like that. And so I'm like, this man is telling you that Yeshua is the way. And it was those things that stood out to me, and that's what eventually led me back to Christianity, because I looked at Christianity as, Christ fulfilling everything.
Okay. And so you get out of jail. The judge lets you off. What was the first thing you did after that?
Well, so funny story. There was a car dealership right up the road. My son was just being born. He was 1 year old, and I couldn't get a job. So I walked into a car dealership that I had been in there like 3 times and asking them, hey, I need a job. And they wouldn't give me one. And then I went in there the 4th time, and I just started like flipping tables in the middle of the showroom. And the general manager, a guy named Dennis Arazo, comes down. He's like, is everything okay? And I said, yeah, everything's okay. I just did that because I needed to get somebody's attention, because these people weren't helping me, and I needed to talk to somebody higher up, and I knew if I did this, one of y'all would come down. And he said, okay, well, you have my attention. What's up? And I said, well, if you look at my background, man, you're going to see a lot of red, but that's not who I am today. I need a job. I got a baby. I got another one on the way, and I promise you all I'll do is make you a lot of money. And he said, I like it. You're hired.
Wow.
Yeah. And that was my first legal job.
Okay. And your car sales?
I started off in car sales.
So this is how you learned sales?
Correct.
Okay.
And then late 2008, there was a guy, I was selling him a Ford F-150. And he said, man, you're really good. And he said, if I had a more ethical business, would you do it? And I said, man, I have a bad background. If you can get me in, I'll do it. And he said, well, I'm in real estate. And I got into real estate. And my first real estate deal, I double-sided the deal. So I made 6% on a $200,000 house, made $12,000. I said, man, this is like drug money, but legal. They can't come kick my door down. I like this. And I made $36,000 my first 3 months in real estate, never looked back. And then, I climbed that ladder. Eventually, there was a guy named Dayton Schrader. He was the #1 team in San Antonio, and he had heard about me. He had called me into his office, and the first thing he tells me is, Pat, we have a 6-point interview process. And so you're going to have to come back 6 times. And he did the first interview. He told me about how, my name carried weight in the community. And at the end of the meeting, he actually slid $40 across the table and said, I need you to go buy this book. It was called Strength Finders. He said, I need you to go buy this book. Gave me $40. I said, well, I don't need your money. He said, you're going to take my money. I need you to go buy the book with my money. I said, okay. And for like 3 or 4 months, he would not call me back. I immediately did everything he asked. Read the book, take the test, submit it to him. And about 3 or 4 months later, he finally answers my call, says, I'm back. I'm ready for your second interview. So I come into the second interview, and right when he sits down, I slid the change across the table, and he said, you're hired. You know how many people failed that test?
Wow. And
that's how I got on Dayton Schrader's team. And that was the best. He was one of the best mentors I've ever had, especially in real estate. And our team was number 34 in the whole nation. And so I learned a lot from him. I did commercial and residential real estate with him, and it was a beautiful ride. And then right after that, I opened up a real estate brokerage called Realty One Group. I franchised them out of California, and I brought them to San Antonio, and we became one of the fastest growing brokerages in San Antonio. I had like 80 agents in 7 months, sold over $165 million worth of real estate, and it was beautiful.
Okay. There's a lot to unpack there. So
Yeah.
I wanna go all the way back to car salesman.
Okay.
What did you learn as a salesman? Because you haven't sold anything until you become a salesman.
Correct.
What was
Not
it like?
legally.
What are you doing legally to win people over, to get into sales, to get your skills up? What are you doing? And because you eventually got, what was his name? Dennis. You got Dennis's attention.
Yeah.
What were you doing in sales to develop your skills to get his attention?
Well, Dayton Schrader. You're talking about getting Dayton's attention.
Dayton's attention. Yeah.
So, man, I mean, it was ethics, right? Standing on morals and principles. And when I would have a client, I would want to treat them as if they were my own mother.
Got you.
And I wanted to look out for them. But what I learned, I started studying all the successful people. I never wanted to hang out with you if you were not successful. Because I felt like if you're on my level, what am I learning from you? And so I only chased after the guys that were at the top. I wanted to learn what they're doing. I would always pick their brain. And matter of fact, I had a guy compliment me a couple years back, and he said, "Pat, I knew you were going to be successful." And I said, "Really? How'd you know?" And he said, "Because you would always stop us in the hallways and be like, 'Give me one thing that made you successful.' And then you would right away go implement it." And so that was a big thing for me, is just imitating the guys that were already being successful.
Okay.
And so I would learn from them. I would learn stuff like mirror sales, which is where you mirror the guy that's in front of you. If he's wearing a coat, you wear a coat. If he has a coffee in his left hand, you hold it in your right hand, because I'm mirroring you.
Oh, wow.
And so I was learning like mirror sales and stuff like that. And then I just got really good at like understanding you got to master the product. So like, for instance, when I was in car sales, it was like, what are you here for today? Are you here for a truck, car, or SUV? Oh, I'm here for an SUV. Okay, you like light colors or dark colors? Oh, I like dark colors. And I'm like really trying to narrow down and help you know what you're looking for. And once I know what you're looking for, now I can go to bat for you.
The 3 things I just took away is morals, principles, and values. Because if you are genuinely helping someone, then that's above everything.
100%.
Did you run into people that didn't have those?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Matter of fact, that's actually what made me leave the car industry. And when that guy gave me an opportunity, I said, absolutely, I'll take it. Because there was a lady, she was probably 70-something years old, and she bought her car. She did great. But they wrecked her, or the mechanic actually ripped her door off in the mechanic bay. She came there for an oil change, and he forgot to close the door, and he backed out, ripped the door completely off, and he said, "Pat, I need you to go sell her a car." And I'm like, "Well, she's not here to buy a car. It's your fault." And he said, "No, we can't eat this. You need to go sell her a car." And I got her in a car. We sold it, and we made 25% front gross in those days. And I imagine I made a $4,500 check off this lady. That's a lot of money. She'll never, ever sell that car. And she would come and visit me and say, "Pat, you changed my life. Thank you." And she'd bring me cookies, and, you're the most, the best salesperson. I just felt so horrible.
Yeah.
Because even though I was trying to do a good job, they screwed her over in the back office.
Yeah.
And I was like, this is not right.
Okay. So number 1 was morals, values, principles. Number 2 is learn from successful people. Number 3 was it was implement.
Yeah, implement
immediately.
Yep.
No, you said something else too. Slipped my mind, but okay. So you go into real estate in 2008.
Late 2008, early 2009. Yep.
Okay, you're going at the best time possible, right?
No, right. So me being young, I don't know anything about the market. The market just crashed in 2008. Everybody thought I was crazy. And matter of fact, again, I just had my son. I had my second son, and I had a third son that was on the way now at this point. And everybody thought I was crazy. They're like, "Pat, you're about to leave, a car lot where people come to you. You can make money, and you're gonna go leave it up to chance, hoping that you're gonna be able to sell real estate when you know nothing about real estate. The market just crashed. Like, how do you think you're gonna make money?" And I said, "But I know me." And instead of having this little car lot where I could sell the whole city. So for me, I looked at it as like ample opportunity. I could go knock on doors. I could go talk to the people. There was no restriction for me. So I felt like I could let my wings go. And yeah, I just took off. It was great.
Did you know anything about real estate before entering?
Not at all.
No.
Not at all.
And what was that mentorship like when what was his name again?
So the first guy that got me into the business was a guy named Don Davis, and he was a hustler. This guy was amazing, but there was some things where he was having personal issues or whatever. Eventually he left, I think, to Houston or something like that. But Dayton was his mentor, actually.
Okay.
And so that's kind of how I had met Dayton, but Dayton didn't really know me at the time. And then right after he left and I started like hopping around to different brokerages, what stood out for, I guess, other people is that, you know, I'm here to help, and I'm here to, because again, how I looked at it is, if you're the top realtor, let me serve you for a little bit so that I can learn from you. So be like a value exchange or an exchange principle, right?
Yeah.
So I'll help you is if you'll give me some information. Like whatever you want me to do. You want me to throw signs in the yard, whatever it is, I'll do it just so you can give me the game and show me how to be a better realtor so that I could go out there and provide for my family.
That's a amazing way to expedite your growth. Is find the number one guy, go provide value to the number one guy, and then in return he will provide value to help you grow. That's a gem right there. Okay, so you're doing this with Dayton.
Yep.
And what is that relationship like as you're building it? Is obviously it's getting better and better and better. So what is that exchange of value looking like, and where does that lead you to?
Yeah, man. I mean, he was like one of the top coaches in the nation. So there was a group called the Core Group. It was a bunch of top realtors, top loan officers in the country. And I would get to sit in on those phone calls. I would get to, he would, for instance, they had certain events that happened in Dallas and all over, and I would get to shadow all that and just be picking up on, like, this is how you run a business.
Mm-hmm.
This is how you run a business. How you care for your clients. So we did, there was a thing called, like, the accounts pyramid, and knowing, like, everybody's not equal. If somebody sends you 5 deals a year and one guy sends you 1 deal a year, you don't treat them the same.
Right.
And so you have to be able to know who your business partners are, and you got to really love on them. And so, like, customer care and really taking your customer service to the next level. We're reading a book right now,
The New Gold Standard. Yeah.
And it's the same thing. Like, he was constantly figuring out how to create his new gold standard. There was another book that we read called Raving Fans, and it was about, how do you deliver a service to your clients that's not just the service, but it's the after service, right, that causes repeat customers and referral. And so when we was on Dayton's team, we had one of the highest referral rates in the industry, and it was all because we took care of our clients.
What's one tip you would give to the world that you learned in regards to customer service after to get referrals and more to create an all-around better experience for the customer?
Stop chasing money.
Okay.
Chase value.
Okay.
You have to deliver value. It's not about money. Money, I believe that money is no object when value is there. People only worry about money if they don't have any value, right? Like, nobody questions the price on a Balenciaga or a Louis bag or anything because they believe in the perceived value, right? And so when value's there, people will cough the money up. And so you don't have to have commission breath. You don't have to try and, like, manipulate people into a closing or anything like that. You literally just have to deliver enough value. And when that value exchanges, monetary comes as a byproduct of it.
Okay. So in the tail end of your story, I don't want to say tail end, but what you just said is you started opening up brokerages.
Yeah, so I had Realty One Group, and we took off, but then I ended up having a business partner that stabbed me in my back, basically. Let's
start with the rise. Explain the rise, because you went from car sales to mentoring to now I'm running the show.
Yeah. So
what is that scale looking like? How are you scaling?
Everybody was asking me, man, Pat, how did you scale so fast?
Yeah.
And I said, well, because you guys are chasing the person. and I'm chasing the person that could lead me to the person. So let me make an example where most people they want to recruit a realtor, for instance. So they're going to the realtor. They're going to look through the list, all the realtors. I'm going to go have a conversation with the realtor. I never did that. What I did was I went to the vendors of the realtors. So I went to the inspection guys, the mortgage guys, the title guys, anybody that was a vendor of a realtor, and I say, give me your top 5 guys that you know need a better home.
Wow. That's a
And
cheat code.
And they would just send the referrals.
Yeah.
And when they come see our culture and what we stood for and my commission structure and the value that I brought, the education, because my goal was if you plug in with me, I'm going to take you to the next level. Because I've taken training from, the top Keller Williams. I've taken training from the top RE/MAX, again, the top realtors. And I'm putting it in one manual, and I can show you what they've showed me. And so if you get plugged in with me, I can take your business to the next level. And so, and when I'm only talking to the vendors and I'm selling them on who I am, they go sell on behalf of me.
Got you. You're providing value to the people, to the vendors of the realtors.
Correct.
Okay. So this is how you scale. And then you said that somebody stabbed you in the back.
Yes.
Could you unpack that for us?
Yeah, so the funny thing is we had started a BNI together, which is a business networking Inc., and we were one of the biggest BNIs to ever be created in San Antonio. We won an award and everything for it. And then one day we're in a hallway, and I'm like, I'm thinking about opening up a brokerage. And he's like, cool. So we end up partnering to open that brokerage. And then about a year and a half in, maybe almost 2 years in, out of the 80 agents that we recruited, he only had recruited like 4 or 5. And I think that maybe some type of jealousy or resentment, set in because they weren't ever looking at him. They were only like, we're here for Pat. As a matter of fact, when I left, because when I showed up on January 7th, he had a gag order, restraining order, all this stuff. And I felt like Steve Jobs at Apple. And I was like, there's no way. And he said, you can't tell anybody, all this stuff. That's still behind me, so I could talk about it now. But, yeah, man, I was bitter at when it first happened. But probably about a week later after I left, about 60 agents left the company because they said, well, we were only here for Pat.
Wow. So it was jealousy, envy. You and your partner started this company. How did it fall apart? You left the company and everyone left, and what happened?
You're talking about as far as like what happened with the company or what happened with what was my next step?
What happened with the company in that relationship?
Yeah, as far as I know, the company's still going. I mean,
Okay.
He took off. He had another silent business partner, the investor, and I guess that guy threw some money at him and helped him scale or whatever. But because they're still around, but after that, I had nothing to do with them.
How many years into real estate are you when this happened?
14.
14 years.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's not a small amount of time. What was happening in the market, and what did you see with realtors and I guess their spending habits and their commissions over those 14 years?
Man. Realtors, when they make a lot of money, they blow it.
Mm-hmm.
And I found that to be true. The other thing I found with a lot of realtors is because it's a sexy industry, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so a lot of people want to spend that money, go all these places, look good. But to be honest with you, man, a lot of them are broke.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's why a lot of them have commission breath, right? You go look up national averages. The average realtor sells anywhere from 9 homes to 20 homes a year, right? If you're a great realtor, you can sell 50. I've got a guy that was at my office named Devin Resendez. He's one of the top realtors in San Antonio still. At the time, he was at my brokerage. I think he had about 20, 30 agents. They were selling about 300 homes a year. Today, he's 40 agents in, selling about over 500 homes.
Wow.
Right? And so they're crushing it. He's doing good, but not everybody's like him. Most agents are actually struggling.
Why are they struggling? Why are agents struggling?
It's so saturated, man. There's 2.5 million realtors in the industry, right? And so it's very saturated. And then on top of that, when you're making money, every brokerage has what they call cap.
Mm-hmm.
And cap is what you have to pay to the broker before you start making 100% of your commission. So, for instance, if I was at a RE/MAX, it might be $12,000. If I'm at a Coldwell Banker, it might be $18,000. If I'm at Keller Williams, it might be $21,000, $24,000. And so every brokerage has their own type of cap, and you pay that cap every year. It resets every year. So before I start making my money, I have to pay this amount of money. But that's not just it. Then you have your desk fee, your monthly desk fee for being at the brokerage. And then you have your quarterly dues that are national and state level. And so it's a lot of fees, So, the average realtor is losing about $30,000 in fees alone. So even if
a year.
Wow. And it starts over the next year.
What piece of advice would you give to someone who is wanting to become a realtor?
Well, I mean, you can, but I would tell you, like if I had to do it all over again, I would tell you to add financial services license so that you could also add more value to your clients, because a real estate check, it could suffice if you could get enough clientele, but it's so saturated, man. The market is very competitive in the real estate world. In the financial service world, we're 1/10 of that industry, right?
1/10.
Yeah, so it's 2.5 million realtors.
Okay.
There's 225,000 active life insurance agents.
Okay.
Right, so we're 1/10 of that industry.
I see what you're saying.
Serving the same amount of population.
Yeah.
Now the difference also goes that they have to be 18 years or older, have 2 years at a job, be able to prove income. We can help somebody that's 6 months old and 70 years old, and we don't have to compete over inventory. We don't have reoccurring fees. We have no overhead. And so, I mean, if you don't want to get in the industry that is most likely to make you a millionaire, because real estate falls at like number 6, and financial services is number 1. If you didn't want to make that your main, at least make it your side hustle in what you're doing with real estate, so you can add more value.
I want to go deep into financial services, but I want to kind of unpack real estate a little more, just because I'm not a real estate professional, and I want to learn more through this podcast and also for the viewers. What was the 2008 market crash about in a few words?
Ninja loans, no income, no job, approved. And so that was one part. Another part was you had a lot of companies that were investing in like subprime loans. So with mortgage companies, they have prime loans, subprime loans, which is based on your credit scores. And so at that time, they were willing to take a lot of risk, hoping that we could prop the market. So they were letting people that normally couldn't buy allowed to buy, hoping that those, if we had enough mortgages come in.
The money floodgating would raise the economy.
They were thinking
the assumption.
Correct. They were hoping that would prop the market.
Everyone makes money, and I got you.
Yeah, and then what happens when the market shifts, right? Those guys who could barely pay or already had a proven track record that they don't pay stuff, which is why they have bad credit in the first place, they decide to let the home go, right? This is the biggest purchase that they have. I'll go get me another one later. They're walking away from houses, right? And so after that, when people are just walking away from homes because it would be, cheaper to rent than buy or whatever it may be, the real estate market just crashed right after that.
What's the difference between the 2008 market crash and what has been going on in 2022, kind of seeking into 2023?
It's not really that much. I think it's going to be the same. I mean, I'm looking at the market in 2020, 70% of the job market was considered non-essential, sent home. But then the market got flooded with fake money. You had PPP loans, EIDL loans. You had all these stimulus checks coming out. And so people were taking that money and they were buying rental properties and stuff like that. And so they were blowing the money. But here's the other thing. Wall Street stepped in as well. And Wall Street, 1 out of every 7 homes that were sold from 2020 to 2023, 1 out of every 7 homes was actually bought by Wall Street. So when you had these buyers going out there trying to find a home, Wall Street's coming in competing, and they're saying, well, we can pay $20,000, $30,000 over list.
Yeah.
So now the buyer market has to try and compete with the stock market, right? And they don't realize that they're competing against these investors. And so, but they're now willing to pay that money because they want a house. Unlike Wall Street doesn't need a home.
And then that inflates the market.
It inflated the market. So what we have is a fake valuation of the market right now.
And that's why homes are going for $700 million homes.
And
they're usually what, 300, 400.
Yeah, man. That devaluation of your money is one.
Yeah.
Because devaluation of your money is what causes the inflation.
Yeah.
So that's number one. Then number two, again, you're having Wall Street compete with homeowners, right? I'm a firm believer against it because I think that if I had to choose who's going to buy this home, I would choose a family who has kids and need to put a roof over their head over Wall Street, right? But let's be realistic. The seller's the one that gets to choose who's going to get the contract, who's going to win, right? And who's going to win? The guy with the most money.
And yeah, the seller is usually wanting to make the most money.
That inflates the market because then appraisers are going to look at the last 3 homes that sold that's the closest to your home. And then when you're looking at, well, these guys bid $30,000, $40,000, $50,000 over price, now that guy can get a higher valuation. And so it's creating a fake rise in the market. None of the homes are worth what they're saying it. It's just all this flood of money, fake money, hitting the market.
So what's your prediction on what's going to happen?
It's going to 2008 is going to happen all over again. And I think that's why Warren Buffett pulled out $28 billion last year. He said the market is going to be 10 times worse in 2008. You have Michael Burry betting $1.6 billion with a B that the market is going to crash by June of 2024. Now, of course, is it? We don't know yet, right? They're going to keep trying to prop the market. But think about the market trying to fall. It's trying to fall and go back to reality, but we keep sticking sticks to hold that wall up. Eventually, the weight's going to come down, and when it does, we're going to see a collapse that we've probably never seen, to be honest with you. It's scary.
What are you doing for you and your family to brace for impact on this?
So I sold most of my real estate, capturing the top of the market, getting prepared, ready for the shift, just making sure that most of my money is found in life insurance so that it doesn't get, negatively impacted, because as long as you have your money there, we have a 0% floor, we can't lose. And so I put my money there first. And then when the market does what it does, I'll go to my cash value and I'll start buying up homes again.
Okay, that's a very nifty tool. I want to kind of go back because we're going to unpack that as well. How did you get into life insurance?
So 2017, I was talking to a guy who was living in Cordillera Ranch, which is a very nice neighborhood, very affluent neighborhood, just northwest of San Antonio. And I'm talking to this guy, and I'm always picking these guys' brains. And I said, what did you do to build your wealth? And he said, Pat, have you ever heard of the saying, it's not about how much money you make, but it's about how much money you keep? And I said, yeah, who hasn't? But how do you keep it when you have bills? And he slid a book across the table, and he said, go read this book. That book was called Family Bank Strategy by David Phillips. And I went home and read that whole book that night. I couldn't put it down. And it was talking about how the Vanderbilts were so wealthy that they had more money than the U.S. Treasury at the time. Imagine having more money than your government, right? But they didn't know how to pass on wealth. So by like the 3rd or 4th generation, there wasn't a single millionaire.
They're out of the money right now. Right. There's the Vanderbilt trust is depleted.
No money, right? And yet the Rockefellers, who weren't really there yet, they used life insurance and then created this thing called the waterfall method. And now today, you can't even quantify how much money that family has, right? Imagine being able to say, I don't know, we have a lot of money,
yeah,
right? But anyways, I read that book. Then I read another book called Taming Wall Street, 21st Century Literacy, and I just kept book, until finally I made it to a book called Laser Fund and another book called Misfortunes 101. Both were written by a man named Doug Andrews. And I called up Doug and I said, Doug, you are making me interested in joining the financial service world. The stuff in your book has been amazing. And he goes, Pat, I'm not looking to bring anybody on, but where are you located? And I said, well, I'm in Texas. He said, okay, great. I have a mentee I've been training since 1999. His name is Matt Sapala, and he just moved to Dallas. I said, okay, I'll find him. And 1 week after that phone call, I ended up talking to a guy, and we're going over goals and stuff, and he turns to me and said, well, Pat, what's your goal? I said, I have one goal right now. I'm supposed to find a guy named Matt Sapala. He said, what do you know about Matt? I said, I don't know anything about Matt. But I know that Doug Andrews told me to find him. He said, if I can get you a meeting with Matt Sapala, how fast can you make it to Dallas? I said, I could be there tomorrow. So here's the address. I went and met Matt Sapala in Dallas, picked his brain for about 3 or 4 hours, and I said, dude, how do I join this? This is amazing. And I've been with him ever since.
This is in 2017?
No. So those were years that went by, right? So
okay.
the first book I picked up was in 2017.
Okay.
I learned about life insurance. I used that to open up a brokerage and stuff like that.
Oh, so you learned, applied. So you
Yeah, I was applying.
created a policy, used it to fund a brokerage.
Yeah, we were already just using it for my family.
Could you break that down for someone? How are you opening businesses through a life insurance policy, and why is that so powerful? Because you weren't doing that. You were opening brokerages, but you read this book, had this conversation. Now you're opening brokerages using a policy.
Correct, because instead of like taking my income and putting it in a savings account that doesn't grow any money, or putting it in a stock portfolio that has a lot of risk, I learned that you could put it in life insurance and build cash value. And if you properly structure it and properly fund it, you could lower your minimum. You could lower your cost of insurance, so it actually becomes the cheapest financial strategy. Versus, again, going with big financial planners and guys who are going to go gamble your money, and they get paid to gamble your money. Even if you lose, they win.
Mm-hmm.
And so, but the cheapest strategy out there that is the safest and grows, as if I'm giving it to the stockbrokers and stuff, was life insurance. And so I had talked to my mom. I said, Mom, did you know these strategies? She said, not at all. I said, do you have a policy? She said, yeah, I've had a whole life policy for, I think at the time it was like 16 years plus. I said, we need to call your life insurance agent. I want to see if there's any cash value in there. And so we started structuring. And so we used that first. And
so you helped Mom first.
Yeah. Well, Mom was kind of already doing it. She just didn't know the whole extent of what she had in her hand.
Okay.
But once we learned, and it was like, man, I just expedited my mom's ability to build wealth, because what took her like 20 years to build, I could do it now in 5 years.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, we did that. And then I was like, okay, we're going to keep doing it. And so we would sell, if we sold a real estate property, take the money and front load them into policies. And then that way I have cash in hand.
Okay. So how did you open your business with that?
Because you could turn around and, like, let's say, for instance, I'm the bank
Uh-huh.
with my life insurance, and I write a promissory note or with my company and say, I will give you, my company, some money, and I'm going to charge you 6% interest, and when you make money, you just pay me back. But I'm really dealing with myself, because I also own the company. And so I'm writing a bank note to myself saying, hey, I'll let myself borrow money from myself to fund these things, and then when I make the money over here, I'll pay myself back.
Cool. Okay. So you fund your brokerage this way, and
real estate properties.
And real estate properties this way. And then what was the next step that got you to Matt Sapala? So you're doing this, and then when did you, I guess, meet with Matt?
2022.
2022. Okay.
Yeah, late 2022.
So from 2017 to 2022, 5 years, you're learning, implementing, applying.
Yep.
Okay.
And matter of fact, when I had my brokerage, I used to call insurance agents into my office, and we would go live, and I wanted to, like, interview these guys, like, hey, man, this is what I've been learning, talk about it. And they would be like, I don't know anything about that.
Insurance agents don't know this.
Yes, I was so surprised. And at some of the biggest firms, most well-known firms, and they didn't know, because their firms were telling their people, put your money in whole life, and we'll go gamble the rest of it. Well, they don't say the word gamble, but that's
invest.
Invest.
Invest
right?
is the
invest
proper term.
Is the proper term. Comes with risk. And so they never heard these strategies. And I was like, this is crazy. How you guys life insurance agents, or, you have life insurance license, but you don't learn this. And they're like, no, we've never learned that.
So what was that sit down with Matt Sapal like? I want to, like, you had a paradigm shift, it sounds like.
I did, man. I was picking that dude's brain.
What was the number one thing you took away?
That life insurance is recession-proof.
Okay.
Life insurance is the easiest way to get to the millions, because the more that you go out there and save America, right, and you're bringing real value to people, number one, making sure that they're going to be protected so that they don't become a GoFundMe statistic or a barbecue chicken plate sale, right? But then number two is I could show you how to accelerate your ability to build wealth if you could learn how to use the tool and you can get disciplined. And so, and then if I bring that type of value, not only do I make the commission on the sale, right, that doesn't even come out of my client's pocket. It actually comes out of the insurance company. So they pay me, right? I can still make residual income for the rest of my life, or, you know, as long as these policies are around, right? Real estate never did that. And so for me, I was like, so hold on, you're telling me the industry's 1/10 of the real estate industry. You're telling me that there's no overhead. You're telling me there's no inventory. I don't have to compete. You're telling me the market is wide open. You're telling me that most people don't even know how to do what we're doing, even though they're life insurance agents. So that means really there's no competition, right? And I could create a retirement strategy that, you know, because what he did for me one day too, or at that time, he said, Pat, pull your phone out. So I pulled my phone out. He said, go to your calculator. Pull my calculator out. He says, if I help a family save $250, so $250, we get paid 12 months in advance, multiplied by 12. He said, out of 365 days, if you only worked 100 and helped 100 families a year, multiplied by 100, and you did this for 10 years, multiplied by 10, and he says, now multiply it by 0.05, and it was 150,000. He says, well, that's what you would make for the next 15 years, for the first 10 years of work. And I was like, really? He said, would real estate do that? I said, absolutely not. I said, well, what happens if I was to pass away at year 11? He goes, well, that will go to your beneficiaries, and it'll pay them for the next 10, 15 years from the grave, right? So I was like, wow, I could secure something for my family. And there's no industry out there that does that. And I said, dude, I'm in.
That's awesome. What you said, we're going to save America. You just snuck that in there. How are we going to save America?
Bringing back free enterprise and hope to families. And the way we bring hope to families is educate them. Because I look at the industry right now and say there's two types of guys that are in this industry. We're technically the third, right? So the first guy says, if you don't make $250 or more, I'm not even talking to you.
Mm-hmm.
We have all the strategies, or at least the strategies that we'll reveal to you, right? And so, but if you don't make $250,000 or more a year, I'm not talking to
They
you.
don't even want to talk to you. It's not worth their time.
It's not worth their time. I don't make a commission. I'm not going to talk to you, because the game is only for the guys who are at the top. So we're only going to deal with those guys, right? And then on the other side are basically employees, right? So they work for their companies. You know, they might make $10 an hour, 7% commission, right? But they're employees to that company. And their company's not going to give them all the secrets to the game, because you're just an employee. And so even when you have, you know, that commission structure and you think that you're a life insurance agent or a financial advisor, you're really not the guy. Because if you had an affluent client come in, guess what they're going to tell you? This is above your pay grade. Refer it up. We'll take care of it, right? So these guys are just like, I call them Papa Dough waiters. They might as well, they're just a glorified Papa Dough waiter. So they just take my order, but they don't know how to actually
serve
me correctly. And then, you know, having the leadership of a guy like Patrick Bedavid, Matt Sapala, and these guys being the top in their industry, again, birds of a feather flock together. And when I studied these guys before I joined this, the company, I said, these guys are at the top. I can learn a lot from them. They must be doing it the right way. And I could take that knowledge and go and bring it to the everyday man. And that's how I can go save the world.
Wow. That's powerful. So you joined in 2022. It's now February 2024. What was that time like? What was the startup? What was the learning? Because you're stepping into a brand new industry.
Right.
What was that like when you're learning and then applying?
So the first 3 months, I didn't do anything in the industry because I was still closing out real estate. And so it wasn't actually till January of 2023 that I said, you know, I'm going to take this serious. And then, you know, I'm a guy that wants to implement like quick. So I felt like it was too slow. You know, Matt's up in Dallas. I'm all the way in San Antonio. And I said, man, this is too slow. So, and they even said, well, Pat, we can, you know, partner you with a guy that's in San Antonio. I said, well, do they make $1 million or more? He said, no. Well, then I don't want to get plugged in with them. What are they going to teach me, right? And so February comes around, and it's just bothering me, right? And I'm like, man, I have to expedite this. And so my wife took all the kids, and they were at the park, and I'm at home, and it's bothering me. And next thing you know, I go in my closet, and I start packing my clothes, and my wife comes home, and she's like, what are you doing? I said, I'm packing my clothes. I'm moving to Dallas. And she was like, you don't want to talk about this first? I was like, no. But I tell you what, if you're here when I get back, I know you love me. And if you're not here when I get back, I understand. But if I'm the leader of this house, and if I'm going to be, if I'm going to take care of my family, I need to expedite this learning curve. So I want to learn this as fast as possible. And I said, when I go to Dallas, I have 4 objectives. Number 1, I want to go to trainer. I'm going to graduate top of my class at PHPU. I'm going to hit my CFTs, and I'm going to become a marketing director, which is a broker. And she was like, you're going to do that all in 4 months. I said, absolutely. Watch. And I went up there and did it.
You did it all.
I did it all.
Props.
Yes, sir.
You graduated number 1 in PHPU?
Well, so technically Jesse Moon, which was technically
I remember that.
lead, he was number 1, but technically
you were the fly carrier.
Yes, and I was number 1 non-MD.
I remember this.
Because I was technically number 2, but if you considered not including marketing directors in that, I was number 1. But I was
we were in that same class.
Yeah.
Yeah, because that's awesome. Because I remember you were coming up every Tuesday and Saturday at some point also.
Yep. Every Tuesday and Saturday I was coming up from San Antonio. I was spending, it was a 4-hour drive up, 4-hour drive back. So, and that's what made me want to move up here, because I was spending about 16 to 20 hours in a vehicle every week. And I was thinking, man, I could spend all that time learning instead of sitting in a car. And so that's what had motivated me to say, you know what, I'm just going to move. I'm going to do it in 4 months, and I'm going to knock it out, and I'm going to come back, and we're going to get started.
And that's what you did.
And that's what I did.
Okay. So you hit marketing director. You hit all your objectives. What was the next after you hit all those?
Learning how to be a marketing director, learning how to be a broker in this industry, learning how to the other thing is I was running into problems with my upline at the time because I felt like he was doing some stuff, and we kind of got into a clash. And he was trying to do certain things with my agents, not Matt, but another guy, and
the median guy, the one that's in between you and Matt.
Yeah. And then I told all my agents, we're gonna go pray, and they were like, really? I said, look, we need to pray for this dude, and we're either gonna pray that God changes him, or we're gonna pray that God removes him. December 23rd, he removed himself, which I believe God removed him.
And you went and built an office from scratch in San Antonio.
Yep.
What's that been like? I'm sure it's easy.
If it's easy, it's sleazy. There's nothing easy. But no, it's been rewarding because, so let me go back real quick. When I lost my brokerage, right? And then right after that, I lost an investment company. And I probably had, collectively with me, my family's money and a couple other, we lost about $500,000. And, man, I was depressed.
How long ago was this?
This was in late 2020, early 2021.
Okay, before PHP.
Before PHP.
Okay.
So I'm super depressed. I'm starting to play video games every day, all day, because I don't want to go out and face the world. And I told my wife, it's better for me to kill some dude on a video game than it is to go outside and let somebody tempt me to hurt somebody. And I got super depressed. And then one day I'm sitting there in my backyard. I have a patio in my backyard. I'm sitting there on my chair, and I have a gun in my lap. And I'm thinking about committing suicide because I really want to go hurt somebody, but that's the old Pat. The new Pat doesn't hurt anybody, or as much as possible, right? But I was having a war with myself because I could hear the old Pat shaking on the doorknob, talking about, let me in, and I didn't want that guy to come back. I killed that dude a long time ago. And so I have all this anger and resentment and bitterness, and, I'm thinking about, and the crazy part is I'm looking, there's all these windows to my right. I'm looking inside, and I'm watching all of my kids play around, be super happy, and my wife's super happy. Everybody's just inside playing in the living room, and I'm outside. As a father, I'm bearing all the weight. They don't know what I'm going through. They don't know that Dad just lost everything. So they're in complete bliss. They got food in their stomach, a roof over their head, the video games, the light, everything you need, right? But I'm outside super depressed because I just lost everything, and I don't know where to go from here. And so I thought, well, if I kill myself, they'll get the life insurance policy, and
That's a real thought you had.
that's a real thought I had. They'll get the money, and they can bounce back. And my wife comes outside, and I'm sitting there crying, and when she comes outside, I stood up, put the gun down, and I stood up. I started wiping my eyes because no man wants to cry in front of his wife, right? You got to be solid. And she was like, Pat, I just want to know, how do we move on from here? And I said, it can't be about money. Whatever it is moving forward, it has to be about two things, impact and influence. And if it could do those two things, I'll do it. But if it's not about those two things, I don't want to do it. And then fast forward a year later, there's this preacher that comes out of Chicago, and he's at an event in San Antonio. And I'm sitting all the way in the back. And this guy's preaching, and all of a sudden he says, sorry, guys, I know you guys came to hear a sermon, but God is telling me to speak to somebody. And he comes off the pulpit, and he walks all the way down, comes down the aisle, and he looks at me and says, you used to be an Elijah. You used to be a mighty man, but Jezebel's been chasing you. And he said, but I need you to come out of your cave, Elijah, because there's an Elisha who's waiting for you. And he'll be double the man that you are, but won't get there unless you come out of your cave, and you need to go meet him. And you need to go find your Elisha. And that was a day, that was in 2022. And right after that is how I met Matt Sapala. And I believe that it was just God ordained. Because how I know that too is because right after I joined the industry, 1 week after I joined the industry, I had 3 prophets call me, people who have a prophetic gift. 2 of them called me and immediately said, Pat, God told me to call you and tell you the financial service world is where God's hand is at. You need to do that. And I said, you just gave me confirmation. I joined last week. And there was another guy, I wouldn't really necessarily call him a prophet, but he does have like a gift of, but I just know him as a friend. But I haven't seen this guy since about 2010. And he calls me out of nowhere. He said, Pat, God told me to call you and remind you of a dream you gave me in 2009. Do you remember it? And I said, no, not at all. He said, well, we were at this house. I remember it had tile roof. There was a golf course in the back. It was a gated community. You had nothing in the house. You had 4 spoons, 4 forks, 4 knives, and 1 little mattress on the ground. And I said, yeah, I had just went through a divorce. That's my mom's house. And I do remember that. He said, so you remember the dream? And I said, no, not at all. I just remember what you're talking about. I just went through a divorce, and that's what you're talking about. He says, okay, well, you woke up that morning, and you remember the pizza box on the ground? I said, I remember the pizza box. I don't remember this dream that you're telling me. He said, you told me that you would be up on stage preaching financial literacy. And I was like, really? He said, yeah, man, so God told me to remind you of that dream and to let you know it's probably going to be in the financial service world that God's hand is. And I was like, really? I said, well, dude, you're the 3rd person to call me and confirm that I'm on the right track.
Wow.
Yeah.
What was the original question I asked you that we were back to? No, but okay. So you're on the right track. I've been obviously we've been working together now for, it feels like way more than a year, but it's been about a year now.
Yeah.
I see what you're doing, and it's very admirable. What's it been like starting the office in San Antonio, and what are some of the issues you're running into that's different from real estate? Is it easier? Is it more difficult?
Well, I would say it's easier. Again, with real estate, hyper competitive. You're competing. Sometimes I remember being at a house one time. I brought my buyer, and literally, we're like in a line wrapped around the block, waiting to walk into this house.
Oh, okay. It's everyone's going and looking at the house.
Man, crazy. But when I get an agent that says, Pat, I see the value. I want to join this. Immediately, what I say is, okay, we're starting. You're going to work with me. Now, if you were to open up a business, who would you want to know that you opened up a business? And they start giving me a top 25 list. And I say, great, let's make a phone call. and we're going to get in front of them. And all I want to do is teach them what you're about to get into. And so we're going to go on a meeting, and all I want to do, I don't want to sell them anything. I just want to educate them on what we're going to be doing and how you're going to be impacting lives. And when I go out there, you're going to learn, but I'm going to do all the talking. Okay, so we go out there. And every time I go to educate somebody, they go, well, Pat, how come I've never heard of this? This sounds too good to be true. And that's when I have to break down the industry about, you know, the guys at the top, if you don't make $250,000 or more, the guys at the bottom, they're just like order takers. And nobody wants to tell you this information, because if they told you, you would get wealthy. So why would your job tell you how to get wealthy? Because they don't need you to leave the job because you got wealthy. They need employees. So they're going to put you in products that they know is cyclical. Every so many years, it's going to crash. You're going to lose most of your retirement. So we look at, if I started a job in 2000, right, and I've been working till 2024, how many times has the market crashed?
What is it, like 5, 6?
Right?
2000, 2001, 2008.
2020, the market crashed.
2020,
dropped
2022.
40% in 22 days. Imagine you've been working 20-something years, and in 22 days, you lose 40% out of your 401k, whatever it may be, right? Like, that's insane. But the jobs know this. You're not really building a retirement. If my 401k drops 50%, the market has to bounce back 100% before I even break even. Well, how long is it going to take me to gain 100%? How long is it going to take the market to bounce back 100%?
Oh,
it could take 5, 6, 10 years, which means in that time, I thought I was growing money. I haven't even grown $1. I haven't even got back to break even.
But the arrow's green.
Well, the arrow's green.
The arrow's still green.
But there's no money coming to your account yet, right?
Interesting.
So that's the deception out there, right? So when I start educating on how this differs from what you currently have, it's easy. They go, Pat, I need that in my life.
And that's how you're going to save America.
That's how I'm going to save America. Educating one family at a time.
Okay.
And the bigger I build my army, the more guys I have going out there getting in front of people, and I can come in there and help. Again, that's when I saw this industry and said it's about impact and it's about influence, because I'm going to go out and impact people's lives, families, but I'm also going to influence people to go from where they are today and help them get into business, help them take back ownership, help them take back their finances, help them take back their life, help them take back their future, help them be able to retire with dignity. Oh, man, it was beautiful. And so I was like, this is it.
What are you going to do next for your family?
So I got my son. He's 18 years old. He just graduated, and he's already joining me in business. My third son is already talking about, I can't wait till I graduate. I'm joining you in business, right? And so I'm going to build a national brand. I'm going to have all my family in it. It's going to be a family business. We're going to go out and impact a lot of people. I want to have over 10,000 agents across America. I want to be one of the biggest flag carriers for PHP.
Okay.
Right? And because I think that just tells you how we're going out and impacting families.
What else other than being a flag carrier for PHP and bringing your family on the business, or is that your main objective?
No, it's not all about money. I mean, the goal is to teach my kids.
Not about money, but helping your family and helping make an impact.
Yeah, teach my kids to do the same.
Okay.
Outlive your life. There was a book by John Maxwell. I think it was Maxwell. No, Max Lucado, I'm sorry. There was a book by Max Lucado called Outlive Your Life. You know, want to read a great book? That's a great book. I like the way that it starts off, and it's talking about this guy that's, you know, he's at sea. He's a captain at sea, and, you know, he ends up going, he sees like these 3 islands. So he goes to the first one, it's full of poverty and pandemic and all this stuff. He goes to the second island, sees the same. Goes to the third island and sees like everything flourishing. They've got agriculture, they've got everything. And so he goes to the chief of that third island. He goes, you know, what are you guys doing differently? And they say, oh, you need to see, I forget the guy's name, but let's just say Father Abraham or whatever, right? And so they go over there. He's like, well, show me Father, lead me to this guy. And they're explaining and showing him this and showing him that. He says, you're still not showing me the guy. And eventually, at the end of the story, he goes, well, that guy died a long time ago. You didn't ask to, like, him. You asked us to show you him. And everything you see was what he did, right? And the impact that he left on this island. And I want them to be able to say that about me. I want them to say that even when I'm not here, that Pat left an impact. And so whatever I got to do to outlive my life, that's what I want to do. And I want to make sure that my kids feel the same way, that they want to go out there and outlive their life. It can't be about money. It can't be about, and it's not even just my family. I want to, the people that, they say sometimes your family is not the people you were born with, but the people that you associate with later.
Mm-hmm.
Like I want those guys. It doesn't matter if you was in prison before. It doesn't matter if you was homeless. It doesn't matter if you was on drugs. It doesn't matter where you were. Don't let your first couple of chapters in the book dictate the rest of the chapters in the book, because every great story needs a build-up, needs some suspense to keep you. So let that stuff drive you to make the end of the story so amazing that everybody's like, man, that was a great read, right? So outlive your life.
Thank you for your time.
Absolutely.
I'm excited for what you're going to be doing and to have you back on so we can hear more of the story.
Cool.
Appreciate
it,
your time.
brother. Yes, sir. Awesome.